I want to tell you about the afternoon a wooden peg snapped off clean, below the surface of an oak rail, and how a man I had known for all of a week made me feel like I had never held a tool in my life. I had 30 years in the shop by then. I thought I knew wood. Then the old shipwright at the Essex Heritage Yard picked up a curved blade I did not recognize, took 3 swings, and showed me everything I had forgotten. His name was Alvar. He built boats the way his grandfather had, with tools that most woodworkers today would not even recognize, sitting on a bench. And that is what I want to give you in the next little while. 12 tools that every shipwright once carried, one job each, that have all but vanished from the modern shop. How did men build hulls that outlasted the very men who built them, with almost none of the machines you would reach for today? The answer is in their hands, and in these tools. Nearly all of them have no clean power tool that replaces them, because they were guided by the eye of the craftsman and not by a fence or a jig. Let me walk you through everyone. Number 1 is the adze. If you have never seen one swung, it looks almost dangerous. A curved blade set crosswise on a handle, swung down toward your own feet in long, patient strokes. The shipwright stands on the timber and hews toward himself, and that word, hewing, simply means shaping wood by cutting away thin slices with an edged tool rather than sawing or planing it. Alvar could take a rough oak log and fare a curve into it, and faring means smoothing a line until it flows sweet and true with no flat spots or bumps, by eye alone. No pattern, no jig. He would sight down the timber the way you might sight down a rifle, take a swing, sight again, take another. That is your guide, your own eye. A planer gives you a flat face and a machine curve. It cannot give you the living sweep of a hull that bends the way water wants it to bend. I watched him hollow the inside of a futtock, one of the curved frame timbers of a boat, in about the time it takes to brew coffee, and the surface came off the blade smooth enough to run your palm across. Try that with anything that plugs into a wall. Number 2 is the broadaxe, and it is a strange-looking thing the first time you hold one. The blade is wide, sometimes near a foot across, and it is beveled on one side only and flat on the other, so it can pare down the side of a log the way you might shave cheese off a block. Its one job was squaring, turning a round log into a beam with flat, true faces. A man would score the log first with an ordinary axe, chopping notches down to a snapped chalk line, and then take the broadaxe and slab off the waist between the notches in long, clean sheets. The flat back of the blade rides against the finished face and keeps it honest. You steer it with your body, leaning in, reading the grain as you go. Today we run a log through a sawmill and get 4 square sides in a minute. Faster, yes. But the sawn face is torn, where the broadaxe leaves the wood burnished and closed, and a burnished face sheds water instead of drinking it in. On a timber meant to live outdoors for 100 years, that difference is not small. Number 3 is really a pair, the froe and the maul. The froe is an L-shaped blade with the handle set at a right angle, and you drive it down into the end of a log with the maul, which is just a heavy wooden club, and then you lever the handle over to split the wood open. This is riving, and riving means splitting wood along its natural grain instead of sawing across it. Here is why that matters more than almost anything else I can tell you. When you saw a board, the blade cuts straight through the grain, so most boards have grain running off the edge somewhere, and water and load find that run out and work it loose over the years. When you rive a board, the split follows the grain wherever it goes, so every fiber runs unbroken from one end to the other. A riven plank is stronger than a sawn, one of the same wood. It bends fairer, it holds fastenings better, and it lasts. The old-timers riving oak for clinker boats knew this in their hands long before anyone wrote it down in a book. That is why a Viking hull could flex in a storm and not tear itself apart. Number 4 is the slick, and the first time Alvar handed me one, I nearly laughed because it looks like a chisel built for a giant. The blade can be 3 inches wide, and the whole tool as long as your arm. But you never strike a slick with a mallet. You push it with your shoulder and your slow weight behind it, paring long ribbons off a joint. Paring simply means shaving off very thin cuts to sneak up on a perfect fit. Where a shipwright needed 2 great timbers to meet along a broad, flat surface, what we call the faying surface, meaning the two faces that bed tight against each other. He would pair them with a slick, until they kissed, with no gap you could slip a sheet of paper into. No glue in that joint, just wood meeting wood so cleanly that the two behave as one. A router with a jig can flatten a small face. It cannot walk along a curved 8-foot scarf and feel where the high spot is, the way a man leaning on a slick can feel it through the steel. That feel is the whole craft. Number 5 is the breast auger, and this one I have come to love. It is a great T-shaped bit, and at the top of it, there is a curved wooden plate. You set that plate against your chest, wrap both hands around the crossbar, and lean your whole body weight into it as you turn, so your breastbone does the pushing while your arms do the steering. Its job was boring the long, deep holes for the fastenings that held a wooden ship together. And those fastenings were not screws. They were tree nails, or trunnels as the old men said it, which are simply wooden pegs, usually of dry oak or locust, driven into holes bored through the planking and the frame. Here is the quiet magic of it. The trunnel is turned from dry wood and driven into green, damp timber. As the ship sits in the water, the peg drinks moisture and swells, and the joint grows tighter with every passing year instead of looser. A steel screw rusts and splits the grain around it. A trunnel becomes part of the wood. I learned that difference the hard way, but that is a story for another day. Before we go on, one thing. Everything I just told you about tree nails and joints that tighten with age is only the start. I gathered it into a book called Secrets of the Shipyard, 150 pages on wooden fastening, watertight joints, and building things that outlast you without a drop of glue. If you would like it, scan the QR code on the screen. Number 6 goes hand in hand with the last one, and almost nobody alive has watched it used. It is called the moot, or the trunnel moot. Once you have your rough wooden pegs, they need to be perfectly round and gently tapered, so they drive tight. And the moot is how you did it. Picture a steel ring with a sharp inner edge, set into a block or a handle, sized to the peg you want. You drive the rough, oversized trunnel through the ring, and as it passes, it shears off a clean spiral shaving and comes out the far side round and true to the exact diameter every single time. It is a pencil sharpener for tree-sized pegs, if you like. A man could sit of an evening and moot a whole basket of trunnels for the next week of work, each one identical, each one ready to swell tight in the hull. We have machines that turn dowels now, but the mooted peg, cut from riven oak along its own grain, is a stronger thing than any dowel spun on a lathe, and it costs you nothing but your evening. Number 7 is the draw knife. And if any tool on this list is clawing its way back into workshops, it is this one. It is a straight blade with a handle at each end, and you pull it toward you, drawing long curls of wood off the work. The shipwright used it to shape spars, and a spar is any of the long round timbers like a mast or a boom that carry a sail. You cannot square a mast. It has to be made 8-sided, then 16-sided, then round, tapering the whole way. And the draw knife is how you sneak up on that round by eye and feel. You feel the grain lift under the blade, and you turn the knife to read it. Ride it wrong, and it dives in and tears a great gouge, and I have ruined more than one good stick that way, learning. But when it is going right, there is no sound in the whole shop, but that long, soft hiss of the shaving coming off, and you understand why men did this work for the love of it. Number 8 is the draw knife's little brother, the spokeshave. Where the draw knife takes off the rough, the spokeshave refines. It is a small blade held between two handles with a sole, a flat bit in front of the blade that rides the wood and controls how deep it cuts, so it can follow a curve the draw knife is far too big to reach. Rails, tiller handles, the round of an oar, the curved edge of a hatch, anywhere the wood turns and your hand will one day close around it. The spokeshave is what leaves it smooth. It gets its name from shaping the spokes of wooden wheels, and the wheelwrights and the shipwrights shared it. Run one along a rail and you will feel, right through your thumbs, the exact moment the surface goes fair. No sandpaper leaves an edge like it. The spokeshave burnishes as it cuts, closing the grain, so the surface sheds water and takes an oil finish deep and even. Number 9 is the caulking iron, and its partner, the caulking mallet. When you build a hull from planks, no matter how fair your joints, the narrow gaps between the planks, the seams, have to be made watertight. So the shipwright takes oakum, which is old tarred rope teased apart into loose, sticky fiber, and he drives it down into the seam with a caulking iron, a broad, blunt chisel made for packing and not for cutting. The mallet is a strange one, long and slender, with rings of iron set around the head, and when you strike the iron with it, the whole hull rings like a bell, a sound you can hear clear across a boatyard. A skilled caulker drives the oakum to just the right hardness, not so loose it leaks, not so tight it splits the plank. Then the seam is paid over with hot pitch to seal it, and paying simply means running that hot pitch along the packed seam. Done right, that seam swells shut the moment the boat touches water and stays dry for decades. There is no caulking gun in the world that does this. A tube of modern sealant goes hard, cracks, and lets go. Tarred oakum breathes, and it lasts. Number 10 steps back from cutting and shaping to something just as vital, marking. It is the race knife, sometimes called a timber scribe. It is a small hooked blade that cuts a clean, narrow groove instead of a pencil line, and on rough, wet, dark oak, a pencil line is next to useless, while a scribed groove you can see and feel in any weather. The shipwright used it to lay out the waterline, to mark where every timber met its neighbor, and above all, to number the frames. Every frame of a ship was drawn and cut on the loft floor and then carried away to be shaped, so each one was scribed with its own number in Roman numerals, 1s and 5s and 10s, because straight cuts are far easier to scribe cleanly than curved figures. Take apart an old wooden boat today, and you will still find those little scribed numerals 100 years on, telling you exactly where each piece was meant to go. It was a filing system carved into the wood itself, and it never once needed a battery. Number 11 is the humblest thing on this whole list, a batten, which is nothing but a long, thin, straight-grained strip of wood that bends into a smooth curve when you spring it. And yet without it, almost none of the rest is possible. Before a single frame was cut, the shipwright drew the whole boat out at full size on a big flat floor, and this is lofting, laying down the true shape of the vessel, life-sized, so every timber can be measured straight off the floor. To draw those long, sweeping lines, he would pin a batten at a few points and let it find its own fair curve, because a springy strip of wood cannot bend into an ugly line, it can only bend into a fair one. That is the secret. The wood does the fairing for you. He also used battens for spiling, and spiling is the trick of transferring the exact shape of a gap onto a new plank so it fits the first time. No computer drew these hulls. A man, a floor, and a handful of battens did, and the curves they made are the curves your eye still calls beautiful on the water today. Number 12 is the one that ends the job, the commander. It is a mallet, but the word mallet does it no justice, because a commander is a great two-handed wooden maul, the head sometimes as big as a bucket, bound with iron hoops so it does not split itself apart. When the frames and the heavy timbers had to be driven home into their places, coaxed the last stubborn inch until everything sat tight and true, you did not tap them. You swung the commander. One man, or sometimes two together, would drive a frame down onto its keel with slow, booming blows, and the whole yard knew the sound. It is a brute of a tool for the most delicate of results, everything drawn up snug without a single fastening, yet in place, held by nothing but the fit of the wood. When Alvar drove the last frame home on the boat we built together, he set the commander down, put his hand flat on the timber, and told me the joint would hold longer than you and me both. Longer than you and me both. I have turned that line over in my head for years now. Every tool I have shown you today has the same thing in common, and it is not that they are old. It is that not one of them works without the hand and the eye of the person holding it. There is no fence, no motor doing the thinking for you. The adze, the slick, the draw knife, the moot, the humble batten, every one of them trusts you to feel the wood and to read it the way Alvar read it. We did not lose these tools because they stopped working. We lost them because we stopped trusting our own hands. And the joints we glue and screw together today are already failing in a way his boats never will. If today has made you want to build the old way, my book, Secrets of the Shipyard, will take you the whole distance. 16 chapters on watertight joints without a drop of glue, the centuries-old preservation methods of pitch, tar, tallow, and linseed oil, and 3 full projects you can build with your own hands to outlast you. The link is waiting in the description whenever you are ready. And if you want more of the craft that the sea tested for 1,000 years and never once broke, subscribe to the master Shipwright, and we will keep building things that last far longer than we do.